G'day folks, thanks for checking out this video, the second in the series on the Lagerphone. In this particular video, we're going to talk about the different components that make up a Lagerphone, and also, because you can't just walk into a store and buy one off the shelf, we're going to give you some hints and suggestions on how to put one together for yourself. And this is an advantage because you want to have one that's the right size and weight that's comfortable for you to play. So we hope you enjoy it. Okay, so there are two basic components to the Lagerphone. There's the Lagerphone stick itself, which usually has the bottle tops attached, and may or may not also have a crosspiece. Generally, I would always suggest that you do use a crosspiece, but I'll talk more about that later. And then there's the Lagerphone striker. And this is used to give you the interesting offbeats and rhythms that can be used against the different types of music that you play. Here are a couple of examples from various bush bands. And if you do a quick search on the web, you'll come up with many, many more. These should provide you with some great ideas as well. If you're going to make a Lagerphone up to be used in a regular performance type situation, then obviously you have to make it up to the correct size and weight for the person that's going to be playing it. This one, for example, has been made up for a small child to use. It's been made from a broom handle, which is about 25mm thick, and it's taken about 80 to 100 bottle tops as well, which means that the final weight is about 1 kilo to 1.5 kilos, which is nice and light. And generally also, if you use a broom handle to make up a smaller child's Lagerphone, you generally have enough wood left over in the handle to make up the striker as well. And here's a larger adult version of the same thing. This one is based on a pole which is about 30mm thick. It takes about 150, 200 bottle tops, and the end weight of this is about 2 to 2.5 kilos. And this one gives a nice light sound acoustically and also works well in an amplified situation. And if you're after something with a nice solid thump, here's one based on a pole which is about 40mm thick. It incorporates about 250, 300 bottle tops, mainly to do with the band's logo, which has been incorporated into the cross piece here. And this adds to the weight, of course. This is up to about 3.5, 4 kilos, but it does give a nice solid thump, particularly in acoustic situations where you need to get the sound out there a bit. One other point I'd like to make about having Lagerphones of different sizes and weights is that they're not just handy for people of different heights and physical abilities. It's also handy if you're playing in different types of situations. For example, if you're playing on a stage where this band is being amplified and the stage is very live and boomy, then having a Lagerphone of this size and weight can be very impractical because it'll just sound too loud. If you're able to go to a Lagerphone which is much lighter in weight, that's a big advantage. And conversely too, if you're playing, say, acoustically to a loud audience that's very boisterous and the lighter Lagerphone is just not cutting through, say if you're trying to call a dance, then being able to switch to a heavier Lagerphone with a bit more thump behind it makes a lot of sense. I mentioned earlier in the video that I think you should always incorporate a crosspiece into your Lagerphone design. And the main reason for this is that it gives you an extra surface on which to play more interesting offbeats and rhythms and also create different sounds to give your playing more dynamics. For example, instead of just being limited to this, you can now do that, or etc, etc. This particular crosspiece is just a piece of pine. It's about 20mm thick. It's been held on by 2 bolts here, and these are just tightened on with wing nuts. This is an advantage if you need to change the crosspiece over fairly quickly. For example, if you break it or whatever, or if you want to make your Lagerphone lighter or heavier, you can do that fairly quickly as well. When it comes time to actually making a striker for your Lagerphone, you'll find there are many, many different designs you can call from. But the basic idea behind them is the same. You need a length of wood, which is a nice length and weight that feels balanced in your hand. And along one side, you need to cut a series of teeth or curves that give you the rolling action as you slide it over the Lagerphone surface. And these can be made using a hacksaw or a jigsaw, for example. This one is based on a broom handle, so it's a nice lightweight and is suitable, say, for a younger person to use. This one is based on a hammer handle, so it's got a bit more weight behind it, is a bit thicker through here, and this actually allows you the opportunity to actually put two sets of teeth with different spacing, say, from one side to the other. So you get a slightly different sounding roll depending on which side you use on the Lagerphone surface. Another variation on that same idea is to have teeth on one side and, say, upholstery tacks on the other. This gives you, again, a different sound depending on which side you use on the Lagerphone stick. Here are a couple of other ideas. It is pretty much a necessity for you to use a stopper on the end of your Lagerphone stick. There are two main reasons for this. The first one, obviously, is to protect any floors or surfaces you are going to be playing the Lagerphone on. And the second one is to minimise the jarring action back up through the Lagerphone stick through your arm if you're playing for any extended periods of time. There are many different stoppers you can buy, and they all come in fairly sort of standard sizes. And if you're using a stick with a fairly standard sort of diameter, then you should be able to find one that will fit on fairly snugly and stay on nice and tight. If you want something with more padding, of course you can use these deeper ones, which have a much thicker padded end. And they also come in a range of different sizes. If you're making your Lagerphone from a stick which is a non-standard sort of diameter or has an irregular shape, for example like a gum tree branch, then these screw-on type ends are very useful because they will accommodate quite a broad range of diameters on the end of the stick. One other thing I have found useful as well, particularly if you're going through stoppers fairly frequently, is to use two stoppers together to extend the life. For example, if you use one of these screw-on stoppers, you can use one of these larger ones over the top. And this will act as a sort of a sacrificial stopper. So as this wears down or breaks, you can just take the broken one off, replace it with a new one, and continue playing. The other big advantage with having this is that, particularly with these ones, you can add some extra padding inside here before you put it on, and this also extends the life of the whole mechanism. And while we're on the subject of different playing surfaces and minimising Lagerphone damage, one other option you can think about is using a small mat to play on. For example, a carpet square. Or if your Lagerphone's a bit heavier or your playing style is a bit more energetic, then a rubber mat like this is very useful. These go a long way to taking the impact out of the Lagerphone strike on a surface, but also minimising the boominess that you sometimes get when playing on wooden floors or temporary stages. One very useful habit to get into every time you're getting yourself set up to play is to check out the stage sound around you. This is particularly true on wooden stages or on temporary stages. You'll find some areas sound more boomy, others sound more quiet. And these variations you can use to your advantage because you can change the quality of your sound just by moving slightly one way or another while you're playing. Well, there you go, folks. Hopefully we've given you some useful ideas to help get you started. In our next video, we're going to be looking at that very simple but critical Lagerphone component, the humble old bottle top. We're going to be talking about ways to source them, how to prepare them, and also how to attach them onto your new creation to hopefully get the best sound out of it. See you then.